Are you headed to a Final Fantasy pre-release this weekend? Well, if you are, let's go over some cards. Let's chat about a few things that maybe you should look out for in your common and uncommon slot that can help you put your deck together. Let's get into it. So we have done this for the past couple of sets, and I think it's been received pretty well. If you're not familiar with the channel, welcome. Consider subscribing. We'd appreciate it. But I do a lot of limited Magic, both draft and sealed, mostly on MTG Arena, but certainly partake in my LGSs when we do pre-release type events and any type of limited events that they do. And one of the things that I think is really important is obviously you want to go to your pre-release, have a good time, right? You're there to crack some packs, build a cool deck, hopefully pick up some wins, enjoy the new cards, get to test a few things out, and see. Now, there's a ton around the cards that you open, especially in a sealed environment. Lots of people focus on the rares and the mythics, and you should. There are some absolute bombs in this set, some cards that you should absolutely, in those colors, help to build around. But sometimes you are going to see maybe a weaker pool. Maybe you're not going to get a mythic rare, or maybe you're just not going to have a ton of major bomb rares that you're sure what to do with. What I like to do in these types of videos is I'm going to walk through just a handful of cards in each color that I've pulled out that I think are also going to help to maybe shift you into that color, especially if you have multiples of them or if you have some of the other synergies. Now, as with every set, there are different color type combos and synergies. Those are going to be pretty important. If you can leverage that synergy, even moderately, typically a deck that does that performs a little bit well, a little bit better, I should say. And making sure that you stick to your vegetables, right? Having a good solid base of creatures, having a good solid base of removal, making sure you have plenty of lands or ways to find lands. If you do those things, you can have a pretty successful deck. You also want to make sure that you're not going into too many colors. Now, I think this set has the opportunity to splash into a third color. Certainly, there's some okay fixing across the board. Got some pretty unique and interesting sets of lands. However, that being said, this is not Tarkir Dragonstorm. Your 5-color soup deck may or may not work this go around. So that is important, especially with that being the set that we're coming off of. Kind of important to notice and understand. So hopefully, again, let's talk about a handful of cards. Keep your eyes out for some of these. And if you see a couple of them, maybe you consider going into that color because I think they're going to be pretty good. All right, let's get into it here. The first one, Ash, Princess of Dalmasca, legendary creature, human, rebel, noble, 3/2 for 3. 2 generic and a white. Whenever she attacks, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. White and red specifically, but also blue. There's a couple of cross synergies with both white, with red, and with blue, and a handful of others. There are artifacts and good equipment basically in every color. There's a lot of artifacts. There's some really good artifact synergies. So this, if you are going into an artifact synergies, this can be very impactful. This is probably a little bit better suited for an equipment deck where you can pump her up, give her some extra either evasion or power and toughness or something else that's going to allow you to make sure that you get multiple triggers. But you're digging 5 cards down, you're grabbing any artifact, so it doesn't have to be an equipment, it could be an artifact creature, it could be Phoenix Down that we're going to talk about here. There's some pretty good stuff. In blue, there's some, are there any removal spells, artifacts? Probably not. I'm thinking the enchantments. There's some really, really good digging that you can do here. So I think she's pretty good, she's well statted, and if you're in that type of deck, this is probably a card that you want to look out for. If you have one of these and a couple of good equipment, this is certainly going to be something that you should consider and can help maybe steer you a little bit more in that direction. Anytime that you can look at more cards and get some kind of advantage, even if you get one attack off of this and are able to get something and pull a card into your hand, that's pretty important. The other cool part is it puts the rest in the bottom of your library. So if you're not in a color like black that wants stuff in the graveyard, that's actually pretty nice. Then you don't lose out on some of those things, and I think that's pretty important. Battle menu. I love this card. I absolutely love this card. I love the flavor of this card. Everything about this card I love, especially in white, for a couple of reasons. One, the 2/2 for 2. It's just a good rate. Every single one of these things is a good rate for what it does, in my opinion. And the flexibility of this card, I think, makes it just so awesome. You have a destroy effect, target creature with power 4 or greater. You have life gain if you need it, gain 4 life. You can give a target creature +0/+4. That's going to be good for rebuffing maybe a type of burn spell or some type of damage spell. Making the 2/2 as a surprise blocker, this being a 1 generic and 1 white instant, is so good. I absolutely love this card. I'm going to try to jam white a little bit if I see this card, honestly. I think it's that good. I might be totally wrong, but I just love the flexibility. I love the flexibility of this, and I feel like this set has done that really, really well. So keep an eye out for this one. Phoenix Down is also another really interesting one. Again, there's a lot of artifact synergies, especially blue-white is going to take a lot of advantage of this. But it's a good first turn play. Phoenix Down for 1 white. It's an artifact. You then pay a 1 white and 1 generic. You tap, you exile it, you choose one. You can return target creature with mana value 4 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Kind of cool. Or you exile target skeleton, spirit, or zombie. Now, I did not look at the stats. One thing that will make this maybe a little bit weaker will be how many skeletons, spirits, or zombies there are. I don't know. I'll have to feel that out a little bit. But the ability to return a card essentially at instant speed from your graveyard with mana value 4 or less is pretty good. Consider that. And again, there are lots of other synergies around artifacts. Having artifacts on the battlefield, having artifacts as a part of that, even casting artifacts, I think, to a certain extent. So this one's pretty interesting. Could be a little linear, so keep an eye out for that, but I do like that. Restoration Magic. I'm just going to say across the board, I think all of the tiered spells are going to be pretty solid. I think they're definitely effects that you're going to want to run in those colors. So I think across every color, I've pulled these out. I really like these. Again, I think the flexibility in a limited format, whether that be sealed or draft, is going to make these really solid for the fact that you can choose and power these up as you go based on what you need. The white one is pretty cool. Restoration Magic for 1 white at an instant. You can cure, so just for the 1 white, target permanent gains hexproof and indestructible. So this is great if you're attacking, you're trying to do something else, or you have a powerful creature that you want to protect. 1 white can help to do that. You can pay an additional white, or 1 generic, excuse me. It can gain hexproof and indestructible, and you gain 3 life. So it's essentially 1 mana for 3 life. That's pretty good. And you can use that in a pinch as well. Like if you're low on life, you need to gain a few, maybe get your final attack in, swing for a win. That could be pretty cool. And then you can pay 3 generic and an additional white, so 5 total. All permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible, and you gain 6 life. What's interesting about this is it's permanents, and the entire card is permanents. So again, we talked a lot about white being kind of centered around equipment-esque in many instances. Sagas, other enchantments that you might have, especially some of the blue stuff, you can give those permanents hexproof and indestructible. So that is something to note, and I think helps to raise the power level of this card just a little bit. And again, the fact that you can tier it up, factor it in, it's good early game and it's good late game, I think is a pretty good effect. So happy with that. There's a lot of summons. There's a lot of saga, summon, enchantment creatures in this whole set, and I think most of them are pretty solid. This one in particular seems really good in white. You have summon the Primal Garuda for 3 generic and a white on the first step, first lore counter. You're going to have Aerial Blast, which deals 4 damage to target tap creature and opponent controls. For that rate, it's okay, but again, keep in mind you're getting a 3/3 flying Saga Harpy. That might matter. I don't think it does. Then you have, for the next 2 chapters, Slipstream. Another target creature you control gets +1/+0, gains flying till end of turn. So some extra evasion buckled into this, which is pretty cool. And again, I think there's going to be a lot of cross synergy with these, right? So again, most of white, you're going to want to be pairing, it seems at the outset here, with either red or blue to take effect of that. But there's some really good green cards related to the sagas that could also be impactful. So keep that in mind. Pretty cool. I like this summon, particularly amongst the group as well. Let's jump down over to blue here. Got a handful of cards in blue I want to talk about. First one, Combat Tutorial. We've seen this before. It's a sorcery for 2 and a blue. Target player draws 2 cards. For 3 mana, right off the rip, that's already pretty good. I threw this in here because you get an extra 1/1 counter. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. I actually really, really like that. And there is a little bit of counter synergies. So again, kind of keep that in mind. I just think that little extra value bumps this up for me. Is this a backbreaking card? By no means is it, but it's just pretty good, and you get a little bit of additional value out of it. Obviously at sorcery speed, but this can be good, you know, pre-combat, first main phase, hit this, pump up your creature, maybe get in for some damage or get a better attack. That could be pretty cool, while also gaining a little bit of card advantage as well. Dreams here, surveil 1, draw a card for 1 and a blue. I like it. Instant speed, great. The thing that ticks this card again, flashback is back. Flashback is great. You got flashback. So flash this thing back. Absolutely awesome. There's some really good card draw spells, as you've seen already. 2 of them in the set, and I think these are great. So definitely do that. Ether is an interesting one here for me. For 4 mana, 3 generic and a blue. It's an artifact. Comes onto the battlefield. You tap it. You exile it. You add a blue mana. When you cast, you next cast an instant or sorcery spell, you copy it, and you choose new targets. This is something that I feel like, again, you could be in more of a spell slinger deck, and there are plenty to do with that. Red, blue is going to be just insane for this. With the wizards that it's making, they deal a damage. That's going to be crazy. I think that's going to be a very, very potentially powerful archetype in this set. This right here, I think, is an awesome uncommon for that. So if you get one of the really good rares or mythics that does that, and some good, you know, supporting cards, and you have one of these, really consider throwing it in there, especially if you have other cards that care about artifacts on the battlefield. This is also an interesting one. There's nothing saying that you have to pop this right away, but also you can, right? And that part's pretty cool. So I like this card. I think it's pretty neat. Ice Magic. It's another tiered card. This is great. This is everything you want to do for each of these different levels, and at every rate here, except for maybe the shuffling it, which maybe that's a little expensive. But returning a creature for 2 mana or for 4 mana, putting it on top or bottom, you're happy with that. I think this is a good limited card. It's going to be really, really good. Again, a lot of this, especially blue-red, cares about those instants and sorceries. So this is going to be pretty impactful. And again, a good instant. I really like these tiered cards a lot. Magic Damper is another interesting one. Target creature gets +1/+1 and gains hexproof. The big component of this is it untaps. That part I really like. So this, usually you see this type of effect, and it's in response to something being targeted by some type of removal spell or some impactful spell like that, where it's going to, you know, lower its defense or toughness or whatever, and it's going to lose in the trade of combat. This actually allows this to be used a little bit differently, in the fact that if it's a tapped creature, you can get in, attack with it, have somebody attack into this, play this, +1/+1 hexproof, and untap it, and then declare it as a blocker. Now there is a little bit of sequencing there, which you have to be careful of. If they have open mana for a removal spell, then this will get blown out a little bit. But for 1 mana, how much do you really care? The fact that it gets +1/+1 and hexproof is pretty cool, so they can't do anything after that, which is pretty neat. I think this has potential to be a pretty good combat trick in many different scenarios. But the untap part of it is really, really interesting. There are also lots of cards that you can use where you can untap this, just give it hexproof and untap it, and then tap its ability again. So do consider that as well. This one's pretty neat. And then what is being called the cheap version of Snapcaster Mage here. I'm not even going to try to do the name because I don't know. But for 2 and a blue, you get a 2/2 human wizard legendary creature with blue magic. When it enters, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard. Not from your graveyard. From a graveyard. And mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. That spell would be put into a graveyard, exile instead. That's pretty impactful. Mana of any type can be spent, and it's any instant or sorcery in a graveyard. So you can target your opponents, you can pull out some of their impactful cards, maybe some of their flashback cards, and then they get exiled instead, which means that they don't gain the value from flashback. Keep an eye out for this one. It's going to be pretty interesting. I like this card a lot. All right, let's jump up to black. Evil Reawakened. I just like this effect. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with 2 additional 1/1 counters on it, or 4 and a black. Now, black is the reanimation color, as you may well know. And I think the additional benefit of some 1/1 counters on this is pretty cool. I also think with a lot of the creatures, there's a pretty good amount of discard opportunities in both black and red, it seems, with the set. So being able to put something powerful into the graveyard or having something get destroyed and being able to bring it back, this is a pretty good costed spell, in my opinion, for how we typically see this effect, which is nice. In addition to all of those things, some of the sagas, again, some of the summon saga creatures are really, really impactful as well. So there's a world in which you're able to play this, have something come in that deals damage or destroys something, like the Primal Garuda there that you can see on screen, and get some additional value out of it. Plus, you're pumping the creature as well. So I really like this effect. I think, again, if you're in any type of reanimation or graveyard strategy, you definitely want to look out for this, and I think you can surprise some folks with some of these. There's also a series, we're going to talk about these, of the specific land cyclers as well. So black obviously is able to really kind of take advantage of that with this, and even getting one of these back is super, super impactful, and you can make this an 8/8 trampler for a simple 5 mana after you forest cycled. That seems pretty good. I'm not going to lie. That seems pretty good. Poison the Waters is another interesting one. It's a sorcery. Choose one for 1 generic and 1 black. All creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. Target player reveals their hand, choose an artifact or creature card from it, and that player discards that card. Now, it seems like there's some well-statted creatures in this, but there are also lots of equipment, lots of other things. The job select feature of equipment specifically, putting the 1/1s on the battlefield. It feels like the -1/-1 could actually be a little bit more impactful in this set. We'll have to see how the games play out and how some of the cards shift and what people are playing and taking. But this effect feels a little bit better than maybe it has in the past, just with the power and toughness of creatures, that we're getting. So we'll see. But I also like the flexibility of this card, revealing artifact or creature, being able to pull it out. That's not bad either. And then we have Vane's Treachery here. Kicker, sacrifice an artifact or creature. This is cool, and I like this because, again, there's a lot of this set specifically that cares about cards in graveyard permanents, specifically in graveyard. You can also do some cool things with this, with your summons and some other things. So, be able to sacrifice those creatures. But for 2 mana, 1 generic and 1 black instant, you can give a creature -2/-2. Pretty good for that rate. If you kicked it, it gets -6/-6 instead. Very, very good. That's going to take out a lot of very, very powerful things in the set, and I think a very, very good removal spell, especially if you can get a little bit of additional value off of the sacrifice, which black has some good payoffs for. So that is pretty cool. I only picked 3 black cards here to showcase, and that's not to say black is weak at all. I think there are just a lot of really solid effects we've seen in the set. So a lot of the stuff that you'd see normally, there's a bunch of really good removal spells that are well costed. I could have thrown those in here as well. So just keep that in mind. This is by no means like a ranking based on what I picked. These are just some standout cards that I felt from the sets to keep an eye on. Black feels very solid. Feels very, very solid from what I've seen. Just that these 3 were pretty interesting to me, and I think pretty well costed for what we're seeing. As we go down to red, there is a ton of these equipments. This one, interestingly enough, does not have the job select feature. Coral Sword for flash for 1 and a red comes in. It enters, you attach it, it gives first strike, it pluses up +1/+0, and it's an equip for 1. If you are in the red-white artifacts deck, you love this card. Absolutely great, super cool combat trick, punching some damage. A lot of double striking creatures in the format as well, so you could really throw some pretty impactful damage. I like this one quite a bit. Another tiered card, Fire Magic. This is awesome. Deals 1 damage, deals 2 damage, up to 6, deals 3 damage to each creature. That's pretty impactful. Each creature for this, 1 damage to each creature for 1 red. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. I like this one a lot. Now keep that in mind. Don't kill your own stuff on accident, but this is pretty good in my opinion. Haste Magic. I love this card. I think it's really cool. Cloud on there. Instant for 1 generic and red. Target creature gets +3/+1 and gains haste. Exile the top card of your library. You may play it until your next end step. For 2 mana, this is a very good, very good at instant speed. This card's pretty insane. So keep an eye out for this. I am interested to see how like red-white aggro works in this set. There's some pretty well-costed creatures. There's some pretty well-costed spells. I think that might be an archetype to pay attention to. We will see, and we'll see how things unfold. But Haste Magic is certainly helping that in many regards. Laughing Mad. The only reason I picked this, you know why? It's got flashback. Everybody loves flashback. Additional cost to cast this, you discard a card, you draw 2 cards. You can do this at instant speed for 2 and a red. Flashback cost of 3 generic and a red. Very good. Self-Destruct is interesting. This is another one of those kind of removal spells for 1 generic and a red. Instant, target creature you control deals X damage to any other target and X damage to itself, where X is its power. There's 2 things to keep in mind here. This is any other target. So this can be a player, which is pretty insane. In addition to that, it's dealing X damage to itself. There's not a ton, but there are a few, especially in blue, there are a few lower powered versus toughness creatures. So there's an opportunity where you use this to kill a creature, for instance, and you don't even lose the creature that you're self-destructing. Now, there are going to be instances where, in many cases, you probably do lose your creature, but there are a few, and you can manipulate some power and toughness in this set a little bit, where you might be able to make some good use of this and not lose the thing that dealt itself damage. So do keep this in mind. The fact that this is an instant is also pretty sick. If you get the jumbo cactar guy or whatever, just attack with it, combo off, use this, and win the game. And that seems pretty cool too, because again, it's any other target. All right, throughout the set, there's a side quest for each color. They're all pretty neat. Most of them are pretty impactful and have some good ones, but specifically the red one stood out to me. Side quest: play Blitzball for 2 generic and a red enchantment. Beginning of combat on your turn, target creature gets you control gets +2/+0. At the end of combat on your turn, if a player was dealt 6 or more combat damage this turn, transform this enchantment, then attach it to a creature you control. Now, if we flip this here, it turns into World Champion Celestial Weapon, Double Overdrive. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has double strike, and a very reasonable equip cost of 3 for that kind of effect. So I like this. Again, I think there's an opportunity here where aggro is going to could potentially be pretty decent. The fact that this is also just plussing up a creature +2/+0 is impactful as well. So some of your smaller creatures that you might be playing can get pretty good with this. And if you're able to punch in some damage or have side quests and then play Haste Magic on something that gets unblocked, you're instantly doing this and then able to flip it. That seems pretty good. So keep an eye out for all the side quest cards. I think they're all well themed for the colors that they're in, but this red one specifically stood out as a pretty solid one. Sorceress's Schemes, say that 5 times fast, is a sorcery, interestingly enough, for 3 generic and a red. Return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard or exiled card with flashback you own to your hand. Add a red and flash it back for 4 generic and a red. That's crazy. Not only can you pull something from the graveyard, you can pull something from exile. Now, it has to be a card that you own, so do keep that in mind, but red has plenty of these effects. This is essentially getting you the ability to use a spell, potentially, if it has flashback, 4 times, which is crazy. So I don't know how well this will play out. It's a pretty good mana investment, But if you have something that you can do with that 1 red and you're able to play this, I can see this being pretty impactful. And again, yeah, that card might be exiled, but that doesn't mean that it's completely out of play. That's pretty neat and going to be pretty interesting to see. All right, and on to Thunder Magic here, another tiered card. Really good removal spell. I like this. I do think this is a little bit higher costed at its 2nd and 3rd tiers than maybe you would normally see. 4 mana for 4 damage. Not as great. 7 mana for 8 damage is also not great. I just really like the flexibility, as I've said, of these cards, so do consider playing them. I think they're pretty good. The tiered cards, this is never going to be a card, I feel like, in many instances where you're sad to see it at any phase of the game. You draw it early, it's going to be a good early removal spell, ping in some damage, do what you need to do. Later in the game, when you have access to 4 mana, you're dealing 4 damage, getting rid of something, and really even late, this might be the spell that helps you to punch through those final points of damage with that big blocker that's in the way. So I like these tiered cards a lot, as you can tell, and I think this is pretty good. Okay, get into green. I will say this, and I talked about this a little bit earlier. This isn't a tier ranking at all, but green feels pretty good. Green feels pretty good in this set. I'm just saying that. Now that could change, and that's not including the rares and some of the mythics and some of that stuff, but just from a commons and uncommon standpoint, gosh, there are a lot of cards I like. And Landfall's pretty cool. Landfall's pretty cool. Again, there are a series of these specific types of land card cycling. Each of these creatures are solid across the board. You are not going to be upset at any point, I think, to put any of them in your deck. The green one stands out because this is just insane. It's a 6 mana, 4 generic, 2 green, dinosaur, that matters sometimes, trampling 6/6 that gains you 3 life. And it forest cycles. Come on. Come on. It's awesome. It's really good. I love it. I love it. Everything you want on this card is here as a common. Keep that in mind, as a common. Chocobo Kick. I love the flavor of this card, so I had to include it. Kicker, return a land you control to its owner's hand. That's going to be pretty easy to do in many instances. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature and opponent controls. If it was kicked, deals twice that much damage instead. I really like this. I actually really like this. I think super impactful. You want this effect. The kicker cost on this is not a downgrade in the slightest at all. At all. I am telling you that. Really consider, I think this is going to be one of the better spells that's played in green, specifically because so much landfall in green in the set. You're going to love this. I think this is great. Play this card. Clash of the Icons? I could be wrong. I don't know. Don't flame me. I said it wrong. Maybe I did. I don't know. 1 in a green. This card's awesome. Sorcery. Choose 1 or more for 1 in a green. Hello? Choose 1 or more for 1 in a green? Seems really good. Your options. Fight. Target creature you control fights target creature and opponent controls. By itself for 1 in a green, that's pretty good. How about remove a lore counter from target saga you control? Interestingly enough, that saga can be the thing that you have fights. Yeah, that's pretty good. Or put a lore counter on target saga you control. Yeah. Maybe do all 3 of those. There's going to be a world in which you're doing multiple of these or all of them consistently. I'm being honest with you. This card feels very, very good. And so many of, again, the summon creatures and the other sagas that we have are really impactful. This card just makes them so much better. So much better. Yeah, if you're playing some sagas and some summons here, you are playing this card if you're in green. Absolutely. Galoof's Final Act for 1 generic and a green instant. Until end of turn, target creature gets +1/+0 and gains. When this creature dies, put a number of 1/1 counters equal to its power on up to 1 target creature. Here's why I like this. Okay, here's why I think this is pretty interesting. This is going to be a neat combat trick. You're going to be a little bit more offensive with this for 2 reasons. One, that extra point of damage might matter. That might be a trade-off, or that might be the point of damage to take bad attacks and make them decent attacks or even good attacks in many instances, especially if you throw this on something that has trample, might be able to get into that extra point of damage. If that creature then dies, this effect resolves and that creature dies in that combat and gets blocked or triple blocked or whatever, you're then taking its power and converting it into and onto another creature. That by itself is huge. I really, really like this effect. I think this is going to be really neat. There are, as green always does, lots of big, powerful, impactful creatures. Being able to have this, the other cool part about this is you play this in response to something getting destroyed or hit with some type of removal spell that kills it. You can then still pump it and get the value out of that power and toughness and put it onto something else, and potentially, again, be moving power and toughness around that can be impactful for future attacks and blocks. So I really like this. I think it's pretty interesting, and I think it's a pretty good combat trick that we'll have access to here in green. I like it a lot. Ride the Shoe Puff. 1 generic and 1 green for an enchantment that has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. The fact that you're dropping this at turn 2, potentially, say it's in your opener, it's pretty dang good. It's pretty good. It also has, for 5 generic and 2 green, it becomes a 7/7 beast creature in addition to its other types. Yeah, sure. I will take an enchantment that for the next 5 turns or so, maybe more, gets me some additional counter value on the creatures I'm playing. And, in green, that's pretty good because they have pretty good creatures, usually with trample and other things that are impactful. And then, you know what? When I don't have anything to do, or I want to keep up, some removal spells or something, end a turn, maybe I have 7 mana, I'll just make it a 7/7. Yeah, that seems pretty good. Play this card. Saz's Chocobo. Honestly, I included this because it's probably the cutest card in the entire set. It's also a Chocobo bird. 0/1 for 1 green. And it has landfall. And whenever land you control enters, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. How about you play this on turn 2 before you play your land, you make it a 1/2, and then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it becomes a full-size grown Chocobo. Landfall, ladies and gents, landfall. Tifa's Limit Break, this one's here. I think well costed. +2/+2 for basically 1 green. For 3, you can double a creature's power and toughness. And for 7, you're tripling it. That seems pretty good. This card's going to end some games. I have a pretty strong feeling about that. All right, and then finally in green, Torgal, a fine hound. This wolf doggo, it's not a dog, I know. This wolf creature for 1 generic and a green, 2/2 is really awesome. Whenever you cast your first human creature spell each turn, that creature enters with additional 1/1 counter on it for each dog and or wolf you control. And, hey, guess what? You tap this and you add a mana of any color. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. How about we pump up some things, make them bigger? How about we also ramp? And it's on a 2/2 body for 2, which by and all itself is really, really good. I like Torgal. He's cool. Good mention here. Now, there's a couple of multicolored cards. I will say this with every set. If you are specifically walking into a specific color pairing, you should look out for these uncommons, because I think they're all uncommons that we've listed here. These uncommons can be very, very impactful, especially in draft where you can see multiples of these. Keep an eye out, again, obviously, for your limited environment here, your sealed environment, where if you're kind of leaning in this direction with maybe some of the other pulls that you have, these uncommons can kind of tip you into that side. All right, the first one of these uncommons that you want to keep an eye out for is Sid, Timeless Artificer. Legendary creature, 4 mana for 4/4. Pretty decent rate, 2 generic, 1 white, 1 blue. Artifact creatures and heroes you control, a +1/+1 for each Artificer you control and each Artificer card in your graveyard. Now, again, if you get the opportunity to open up multiple or find multiple of these in a draft, this is where I think this card really kind of takes that next step, because you're able to cycle it. So you're able to cycle early on, get these in there, then get the boost that you have if you're able to play one of these. I like this a lot. Again, blue-white is going to be the artifact deck. There's some good affinity for artifacts and some other synergies to look out for, but this one's pretty cool. I don't know how many other artificers there are. That's something I need to look at for the set, but even by itself, this one's pretty interesting. And it's just a good body. 4/4 for 4, pretty solid, so I like that. You have X Death here, the Void Warlock, for 1 generic, a black, and a green. Legendary creature Spirit Warlock. When it enters, gain 3 life. I like that. 3/3, gain 3 life for 3. Already on the creature, on its face, very, very solid. At the beginning of your end step, there are 6 or more permanent cards in your graveyard. You transform this. Now, in, green and black, this is going to be pretty easy to do. In many instances, this thing flips over, turns into Neo X Death with Trample, and its power is equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. The only downside to this is it keeps its 3 toughness. So do keep that in mind. It's maybe a little bit, I'll say, squishy on this side of it because of the 3 toughness. But the fact that it has Trample, if you're able to flip this and then get an attack with it, that's pretty cool. I do like this one. And if you're in that green-black kind of Reanimator style, the 3 life gain for the 3/3 for 3 is all by itself already pretty good. We've got Garnet, Princess of Alexandria here. 1 green, 1 white, legendary creature, human noble cleric. 2/2 lifelinker. Whenever it attacks, you may remove a lore counter from each of any number of sagas you control. You then put a 1/1 counter on Garnet for each lore counter removed this way. Again, the ability to remove lore counters. Green-white is the enchantment theme, but it really feels more so the saga theme in this set, and I think that's going to be pretty impactful. Plus, the 1/1 counters that you're able to do and move around and have access to, there's some other spells that can take and make use of those 1/1 counters, is pretty cool. So keep an eye out for this. 2/2 lifelinker for 2, again, is just a good rate on a creature, but this definitely feels like, again, if you're doing the saga thing, you want this in your deck, and the effect is pretty powerful, right? And it's whenever it attacks, so that part's pretty cool. You can pump this up, and hopefully you're attacking and getting some good value. Here in red-white, we have Giat? I don't know. King of the Dwarfs. 1 red, 1 white, legendary creature, dwarf noble. This little guy, 1/1's got double strike. You gotta love it. Whenever he or another dwarf controls enters, and whenever an equipment you control enters, you can loot. You can discard a card and draw a card. Pretty good effect. Actually, really, really good. I like this, especially the fact that this plays off of not only dwarves, which I don't think will be very impactful, more importantly, equipment. And you could do some fun things with this, pumping it up. I talked about Coral Sword. Imagine throwing this in, being able to loot, pump this guy up, do all that good stuff. I think you'll have some fun with this one, so could be pretty cool. We have the Judge Magister Gabranth for 1 white and 1 black. He's a human advisor knight. Okay. He's got menace. That's pretty good. And whenever another creature or artifact you control dies, put a 1/1 counter on this guy. That's cool. Creature or artifact. So that's important for some of the things. There's a couple of sacrifices, there's a couple other options, especially in black, that you can make use of this. And I could see this guy getting out pretty early, getting pumped up pretty quick, and then also being able to punch in some pretty good damage. All right, we've got the Emperor of Palamecia. 1 blue, 1 red, human noble wizard. You're getting some ramp for your non-creature spells. The cool part about this is it's non-creature spells. So you would typically think, again, in the Spell Slinger deck, you're going to be doing your instants and sorceries, but there's some pretty good enchantments, there's some pretty good artifacts as well that you can also get the benefit of this from. So this is a little bit more open-ended than it typically could be, specifically around the type of effect that this wants to do, which I really, really like. In addition to that, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, if at least 4 mana was spent to cast it, you put a 1/1 counter on it. It has 3 or more 1/1 counters, you get to transform it. Now, let's transform it and showcase Lord Master of Hell, Demon Noble Wizard. It has Starfall, which is whenever it attacks, deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of non-creature, non-land cards in your graveyard. You've probably, again, already pumped this up, so it's a base 3/3. It's going to be a 6/6 at least by the time this flips. That's pretty cool. So you should be getting in at least 1 decent attack with this. throwing some damage and it's sending it straight to face, you should already have at least some instant sorceries, some other stuff in your graveyard to help to pump this up. So I really like this card, but most importantly, I like the fact that it's non-creature spell. I think that's really impactful, and I think that helps to not only, this card was good, but this card gets a little extra bump from me just because it's not specific to instants or sorceries. It opens it up for some of the other really good, impactful things. Again, side quest play Blitzball won't impact this because it's not 4 mana, but that's something, again, you got your enchantments, you've got some good enchantments in the set that you can certainly take and get some advantage out of. So I like this one. All right, and the last one is old Titus here, the Blitzball Star. So this is a 1 generic, 1 white, 1 blue human warrior. Whenever an artifact you control enters, put a 1/1 counter on Titus. Whenever it attacks, you tap target creature an opponent controls. I just really like this. I think you're going to be able to leverage tempo with this style deck a lot more, specifically with the Titus. That's something that we haven't seen as much in the last, certainly not in Tarkir, and even a few sets before that. In limited environment, especially in a draft environment, being able to kind of handle the tempo piece. There's some really good bounce spells in blue and some other things that I think you could certainly, take some advantage of. And this is another one to call out that I think can be pretty good. Only discount, or only, I should say rather, thing that it makes this a little bit worse is that for 3 mana, it's a 2/1. And in order to get it pumped up, you're going to have to play something else. So that I could see makes this will kind of be an interesting one to test out. But I could see that might take away from this card just a little bit as well. So do keep that in mind. But that's what I have, friends. There's some really cool cards. This set is absolutely awesome. I am really, really, again, looking forward to heading to pre-release this weekend, getting into some drafts and some stuff. Let me know if there's any other cards down below that you are excited for, and if you think are going to be very, very helpful, and some things that you should look out for. I really do think, again, a lot of the series of cards that we have in the set, some of the summons, some of the tiered magic spells, these specific land cyclers, all going to be very, very good for your decks and hopefully help you out. Have fun, open some awesome bombs, maybe get some of those really, really cool and potentially very pricey bonus sheet reprints that are coming as well that you can get in your pre-release kits. And I hope you have some fun with that. So thanks again for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Again, consider subscribing. We're on our way to 1,000 subs. Really do appreciate all the support. If you enjoy MTG Arena content, got a whole lot of it. If you enjoy pack openings, do those every Wednesday. Got playlists for both. Come join our Discord. Links in the description. And with that, see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.